Peace and blessings. It is your boy, Eli Rex, aka Vibes, and welcome to New York Revival. We're not just sports, it's entertainment. Thank you guys for spending your Tuesday night with us. I am here, of course, with my other host, man, Mr. Glass Half Full. Spee if you nasty now. And I'm here with my guy, El Jefe, Jeff, man, and welcome aboard, man. We thank you guys for spending this Tuesday night with us. Of course, we have a special guest in the building, but we're just going to wait this out. Go around the room. How was y'all weekend, man? It's a beautiful day today, man. We got special guests. New York Revival's on a whole new level.
The weekend doesn't even.
What's going on?
The weekend doesn't even matter now. I'm all jazzed up about this show. I mean, how we can't keep them waiting in the waiting room. This is too exciting. Spiro, what you got?
Now let me tell you this. I was actually rushing for the weekend to end. Who the hell is this? Who's this psychopath?
That's what Tiki Barber will do for you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what Tiki Barber would do. So guys, of course, and Mr. Glass Half Full, I'm sorry. Before I go along, how was yours?
Hey, listen, we were working through the weekend to get to this Monday here. It's a manic Monday. It's a fun Monday because we got a big name here. But I was out golfing last weekend. Pinehurst. If there's golfers out there, get to Pinehurst because that's a dope ass place. Let's just say it's a dope ass place. But hey, we got bigger things on the plate today. We got bigger things on the plate. Eli,
tell me.
We really do. And guys, please leave your comments in the chat, guys. We will read some of them. Give Tiki some answers, some questions, guys, and hopefully he can answer them on the show. Maybe we'll do that there. We're going to have some callers as well. So, guys, it's going to be a fun show, positive vibes, and etc. But without further ado, let me just read some of this off, guys.
Yeah, who's on our show today? Who is this guy?
Let me just go with this guy. 3-time Pro Bowler, an All-Pro. He's in the Giants Ring of Honor. I mentioned he has the greatest, the hottest show right now in New York at WFAN, Tiki Intro. But, guys, without further ado, the legend himself is here, Mr. Tiki Barber.
What's up, boys?
Let's go.
Cheers,
guys. Cheers. Hold on.
Tiki, great to meet you, brother, man.
Jeff, you got to drink it. Otherwise, you don't mean it, bro.
Oh, come
on.
Absolutely. You got to drink it, man. What are you doing? Now, if you're down it, they say you're an alky, so you can't down it. You just got to take a sip, all right?
Since when do you have to tell the Irish guy to take a sip of his beer?
Yeah, right.
That's on me. That will not happen again, I promise.
Please don't, man. You messed up the rotation. But Tiki Barber is here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. How's everything? How was your week? How's the talk show? How's everything? We're going to go over that, but how was your weekend, most importantly?
Everything's great, man. I was down in Charlottesville at my alma mater this past weekend.
Nice.
I was down there helping out with a documentary that the Center for Politics is doing. I don't want to get geeky on you, but we all know about about the Central Park 5 in New York.
Yes.
And those guys were in jail for a long time. They finally got released, exonerated, and they can restart their lives. Well, back in 1949, there was a group of 7 black men who were accused of raping a woman in Martinsville, Virginia. They were arrested, denied due process, tried, and executed in 2 years for rape. And so we down at the Center of Politics are trying to tell that story because it's important. It got overshadowed by Brown versus the Board of Education, and it kind of got lost in history. We're trying to bring it back. So that was my weekend down in Charlottesville, back in my alma mater. But it's been great, man. WFAN has been a blessing. I was on the national level for 9 years, and that was fun, but it's hard to have passion on the national level. Nobody gets jazzed up on the national level. On WFAN, people get jazzed. So it's been a blessing. It's been great.
Awesome. Hey, Tiki, of course, doing great things. Right? Yeah, absolutely. And that's off the Tiki doing great things. Thank you so much for sharing that. We got to support definitely that documentary when it comes out and everything that is involved in it, guys. So please let us know. Be more than happy to support. But we'll just get right into it, man. And of course, we got everybody going around the room. We got tons of questions. So I'm going to start with either Jeff or Spiro. You guys rock sister baby this out, man, and ask Tiki a question. What was going on?
I'm gonna jump you there, Jeff, because
that's a little rude. But
I know. But he kind of led into the question here. So coming to WFAN, you come to New York. How's New York treating you? You're talking all sports now. Has this been your goal all along? Do you want to talk all sports?
So if you go back to when we started on CBS Sports Radio, which is a national network, for those who don't understand what it means, CBS Sports Radio had 600 or so affiliates around the country that they would service, but they were playing ESPN radio and Fox Sports radio and NBC radio. And so CBS started a national network so that they could put their own and operated content, put us on their own operated content. The idea when we first started, 2013, was to have one of the two signals in New York. Because you all know that it's still WFAN 660 and also 101.9. The idea was that the national network would be on one of those stations. The problem was WFAN is too popular. WFAN is on both of those stations. And we never had a chance to be local. And so when Spike Eskin, who is our new PD, approached us about 7 months ago and said, we have an idea. Like we're just doing an inventory on the talent that we have on the local side and on the national side. And we think we want to move you guys to WFAN. I mean, BT was like jumping to the roof because BT grew up in Brooklyn. Like like imagine a little kid at like 6-year-old listening to the radio on his bed. That was BT. Like calling in when he was 12-year-old. That was BT.
He's living his dream.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. He has this amazing passion for local sports. And so it's awesome to be here with him. But I'm a New Yorker. I mean, I've become one, even though I live in Jersey now. But I spent, my entire professional career here in New York in the Northeast. My 13 years I lived in the city, and to hear sports talk radio debate with some of those hosts over the years, in particular Mike Francesa, who we grew to respect over the years. We had some battles, and to now be sitting in his chair. I mean, literally his chair. When we got the deal, he sent us a note and said, this is, you know what to do, right? It's blocking.
So he's cool. He was cool with it, passing the torch.
He was great. He was great. Awesome. So it's awesome to be local and to hear all the passion that the fans have. And despite what I thought, there's only been a little bit of hate. So a little bit.
Well, this is New York.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
This is New York, man. There's always going to be that hate. There's always going to be that hate.
And listen, I'll tell you this. How does it feel working with BT? He's a firecracker sometimes on that radio. His passion just oozes through. So how does it feel? Like, I see when you try to make a point, he'll cut right in and like buggers. He'll go crazy. So how does it feel working with BT, man?
Well, Eli, it depends on what we're talking about. Because we're hitting baseball. And I got to give him, first of all, let me back up. I got to give him a ton of credit. I grew up in Southwest Virginia. Baseball was the Atlanta Braves because they were on TBS. Like, I didn't have a passion for baseball. I didn't play it past, middle school. I started wrestling and running track and doing other things. So I didn't have that passion that Northeasterners or New Yorkers or New Jersey or even Philly and Boston, I didn't have that passion for baseball. I give BT a ton of credit because he knew when we started our show back in 2013, we needed to talk baseball. And so he taught it to me. He legit taught it to me, like the ins and outs and, the importance of rotations and, just the X's and O's, so to speak, the intricacies of baseball. So he taught it to me. So now we can talk it. So the first thing I'll say about BT is that he is a great teacher, right? He understands how to get the best out of his partner. Now he drives our show, as you guys know. He's the driver. He takes us in, takes us to break, takes us to topics, all of those things. And I'm kind of like the analyst that sits there. But every now and then I do get passionate, and he drives me down that path. He's like, "Tiki, this is you, man. You do it. You do your thing." And so he's like a great coach and a great teammate at the same time, if that makes sense. So it's awesome working with him, and I trust him completely. You know what I mean? Awesome. Like sometimes you get these partners and like, they don't have your best interest at heart. BT always does. And he's always had my back, despite what people wanted to say to him privately about me. And I respect the hell out of him. He's like a brother. He really is.
I was going to say that comes across. You guys are clearly like the way you argue and then laugh about it at the end. Like that's some brother, that's some brother stuff right there. Right. But you actually sound great too. Like your voices even sound great. I know the fans coming over in HD now. I can see it on my radio popping up, which is yes. Nice. But you guys actually sound great too. It's cool.
I appreciate that, Jeff.
Yeah, so, totally agree. But go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
I'm ready to face it. I'm ready to get right to it and just jump in the fire with Tiki. So
go ahead.
Tiki. The Eli comments, right? And that's what we're promoting this show, and I was surprised. There's still fans that are pretty salty about that. Right?
How many of them heard what I actually said?
Probably 2%.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
I think it's less than 2%. It was a preseason game. It was my first broadcast, by the way, on Football Night in America. after spending a decade in the NFL. It was a preseason game late as hell at night because it was, 8 o'clock kickoff. Game was over at whatever time. And I said something in not jest, but like my real feeling about Eli, because people don't know him. Like people see Eli and they're like, oh, he's a Manning. He's stoic. Now, well, then they did. Now they've seen him and they're like, this dude is funny as shit.
Everybody knows Eli now.
Yes.
Right? This dude is. And so
Yes.
when I was asked about him, his leadership style, I said, it's comical, like how he leads us. And obviously, if you take that in a vacuum, like you take that and you cut it out, and Eli's leadership is comical, and it sounds like I'm being mean. I'm not. What I was saying was the dude is funny.
He's funny,
and he leads that way because he's not a bombastic, get in your face, yell. He's quiet, but he would do things that would be engaging, and you knew he was growing exponentially. And it's all kudos to him for his success that he had. Despite people wanting to hate on the 500 record and some of the interceptions and things of that nature, the dude was a great leader for us because he was relatable. I mean, he is one of the first in the first family of football, current first families of football with the Mannings. And I said it would end, but I didn't know about Arch. I didn't know about Cooper's son. And so I think it's still going.
He might be better than everybody.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
And he's a great person. And it got misconstrued. The only reason it became a story, because usually things like that are a one-day story. You know what I mean? It's in the back of the paper. You're eating like, screw Tiki, whatever. And then it's gone. You forget about it. Eli responded to it, which made it a year-long story. And then they won the Super Bowl. And then Mike Francesa is on air on Super Bowl Sunday saying, the biggest loser here is Tiki Barber. I'm like, what the hell are you even talking about? Meanwhile, Eli and I have talked this out, and we're good. We're good from jump. But you can't fight City Hall, or you can't fight New York media.
And a lot of people don't know that aspect, that literally right after, I believe there was an interview where you said you actually called him. It was like, hey, Eli, it wasn't meant that way. And I think people don't know that you actually did an interview after the Super Bowl and say, hey, man, why'd you win without me? So if you can, just take us through that journey, that conversation. How was Eli? How did he react to that? If you don't mind, share just a little bit of that intimacy.
So first of all, people always ask me, do you miss the game? So for those first 3 weeks of that 2007 season, I would be nervous. I'd be sitting at NBC Studios in this little room. It'd be me, Chris Collinsworth, Jerome Bettis. I forget who else was in there. Peter King was there. We're just sitting in this little room watching football. And as the Giants were kicking off, because we'd be there all day, I'd be nervous. I'd be like, oh man, I was getting ready to go play. And then halfway through the season, I kind of lost that nerve, right? I kind of lost it. It felt like I was evolving into the analyst that I was eventually going to become. And so I wasn't nervous about him, and I could start looking at him more critically and not being the homer and saying what I saw, etc. And for a while, and you guys remember this, it was like, man, this team stinks. They're not Super Bowl viable. Until they were. And then they started just grinding. And you saw Ahmad Bradshaw coming to his own. He had that game against Buffalo in the penultimate game of the season where he just went buck wild. And
in the snow.
It's like, dude, they have a chance. And then they almost beat the Patriots, as we remember. And, this wasn't an NBC playoff. Right? So they had a playoff game, but they didn't have the Super Bowl. And as they made their way through, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Cowboys, and the Green Bay Packers, it was like, they have the guy to do it. That guy obviously was Eli, because you can say what you want about Eli in the postseason. There's not many better. You know what I mean? It's just what it is. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. And they get to the Super Bowl, and I remember. So I'm covering it basically for the Today Show, not for NBC Sports, because NBC Sports it's not their game, so I can't cover it. So I'm covering it for the Today Show. So I'm doing all these soft interviews, what's going on around town type of thing. But on game day, it's a great story, because on game day, we have credentials. We can go down in the area, but we can't go on the field. So if the Giants win, I can't be out there. Because I think it was a Fox Super Bowl, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I remember this. I grabbed my crew, like the cameraman, My producers, this woman who I knew very well, her name is Alicia Barbo, and we're standing right on the edge of the tunnel, right outside the field. And I tell them, when this game ends, because you knew at a certain point the Giants were going to win. I was like, when this game ends, you have to run.
Yeah,
like sprint, because what's going to happen is those guys that you see in the yellow jackets over there, they're all going to grab ropes and they're going to close the ropes. And once they close those ropes, if you don't have the right credential, which we didn't, you can't get into the ropes. And so right after the game, last whistle sounds, I'm like, let's go. And so we're like running, like flying. And I'm leaving them because I'm still in football shape. Right?
You're still running a 4-3. So
exactly. And I'm like, come on. Like I'm like legit yelling at them. Come on,
like one on your shoulders.
Right? And he's got this big heavy ass camera, the producer's running, and I get inside and then it closes. And they're like right outside of it. And I'm like, damn. So I turn around, I go to the guy. I go to the security guy. Just, he's paid for the day. Right. Yeah. And I'm like, yo, that's my crew. I need them in here. And he's like trying to look at my credential, but not really. And then he looks at my face and he's like, oh, Tiki. Oh, you're good.
Oh,
right.
Man,
so he just assumed. I was a former Giant. Then he let me in. And so here I was. It's a Fox Super Bowl, whatever team was called, or whatever crew was calling it. And here I am with my NBC crew. I'm hamming it up with Sam Madison and David Deal down there and Sean O'Hara, all these dudes, and they're all like giving me dabs and hugs, and it was awesome. And I did a couple interviews. So I go find Pat Hanlon, and I'm like, Pat, I'd love to get Eli. I mean, he's the Super Bowl MVP. Like, can I get Eli? And, I'm kind of persona non grata at the time. I'm expecting him to say no. And he says, Teak, I got you. And so they do it. We do it in the tunnel, not on the field. We do it in the tunnel after the ceremony, and they get the trophy and everything. And it's just me and Eli. It was amazing. You know what I mean? And we just had this great conversation about the journey that he took that season and, the success, and it was great. And then I went up and I went and logged it and stayed up all night and was on the Today because it was in Arizona. So, we got finished at about 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning. And I had to be on air like an hour later to present it. And I'm sitting in there and I hear Francesca say, the biggest loser is Tiki Barber. And I'm like, screw you, Mike.
Can't rain my parade right now.
Exactly. But that's how it happened. And, that's awesome. It was weird because obviously I wasn't part of it, but I kind of was. Yes. I don't have a ring, but I experienced it with those guys in a unique way, which was awesome, man. It's a memory you never forget.
Absolutely. We really appreciate you diving into that, and I'm actually going to take a different angle on that. And thank you for those comments, because what if that was the fire that Eli needed? Because I've seen in documentaries and stuff, Strahan comes out and says, when Eli responded to Tiki, that was the first time I saw Eli with a little bit of teeth, with a
he never got mad. He was never mad.
Comical way though, like you said, even Eli was being comical, like you just said, with his response. Is a little bit of
yes.
That's his way.
It's funny you say that, Spiro, because when he responded, I was like, oh, that's witty.
Right? Yeah, exactly. That's
witty.
Now, Tiki, let me ask you this: do you? And I hate to use this word because not many people will say that they do, but do you feel like you regret ending your career a little bit too early?
No. You know why, Eli?
Why's that?
So it's hard to have experienced my shoes as a New York athlete. Like, you guys will remember, early in my career, I was just a guy. I was just
3 years, man. 3 years you went through it.
I was a dude. I was a dude on the team, right? They tried to replace me over and over again. Joe Montgomery, Sean Bennett. Remember Sean Bennett? He comes in. Gary Brown, may he rest in peace. He just passed away. That's such a sad, tragic story.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great friend. He passed away. They drafted Ron Dane in 2000. And so the early part of my career, it was like, man, this is a grind. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to make it. Right. I have a degree from the University of Virginia. Let me see what else I can do. And I was joking with you guys before we got on here. I knew I wanted to try media. Started working at WFAN doing overnights at 10 o'clock at night with Joe Beningo, 10 to 2 in the morning over that crappy ass studio in Queens underneath the bridge. And, you know, I started to like enjoy talking. You know, prior to that, I was kind of shy. I just started to love talking. And then I took an acting class because I wanted to learn how to like project, like hold myself and, you know, be confident and project, right? And smile, like have a persona, you know, create a brand. And it gave me a different level of understanding of self, right? And so I'm now like on this side parallel path doing media while still trying to be a football player, if that makes sense. It's like there's two divergent things, right? But eventually I became pretty good as a football player. And so the opportunities in media just they grew, right? They just kept growing. Yeah, so absolutely. I went from WFAN, I was working at the Yes Network, and then I was doing CBS, doing the news. And it ultimately led to me with a stint on Fox News. Because me and RHONJ wrote children's books, as you guys know, and we went and were promoting these children's books. And Brian Kilmeade was like, hey, "You should come host one day." I was like, "All right, that'll be fun. Why not?" I've never turned down an opportunity. Right. So I did it. He's like, "That was great. You should come back." It ended up being Tuesdays with Tiki on Fox and Friends, and I did it for 2 years in the off seasons. And ultimately, I started doing it during the season, which was crazy. You know, we play on a Sunday and Tuesday morning, I'd be up at 3 o'clock and getting ready to talk with the, you know, Iraqi ambassador. So it's just crazy stuff going on.
That's what your passion was, it sounds like.
It was just interesting. You know what I mean? I have a natural curiosity. So it just became interesting to learn about things other than sports. And as I started to get a little bit older, you know, I'm hitting 27, 28, 29. I'm having these great seasons. And, you know, we'll get to the Wellington Mara story as we talked about earlier, but that 05 season, it was a critical moment for me because the emotion of losing both of our owners, both of whom I was close with, I almost quit after 05. But I decided to come back for one more year. And, but while all this is happening, you know, I get invited to go to Israel with Shimon Peres, right? Because I worked at Fox News, Tony Snow, who was President Bush's press secretary, he got sick and he left and he started doing Fox News Radio. And he had me on every Thursday. He's like, you know, Condoleezza Rice wants to meet you. So I go and have lunch with Secretary of State Rice at the state. Like all of this stuff was happening, right? And it had nothing to do with football. And I started thinking about, God, when the season's over, you know, I'm going to take 2 weeks off and I'm going to go grind again. I'm going to work out with Carini and deadlifting and squatting. And all of this other stuff was just becoming more like interesting to me. My body was getting beat up.
400 touches wasn't interesting to you? 400 touches a year?
I'll never forget it. It happened in Philadelphia. My last season in 06, Jeremiah Trotter beat the crap out of me down there. And it took me 4 days to recover. I remember telling Jim Finn, our fullback, "Finney, I'm done, man." He's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I'm done. I'm gonna have a great year, but I'm done. I'm ready for whatever's next." And you know, I'm an idiot. I didn't think that the Giants were close to winning a Super Bowl. and so I walked away into the Today Show. Right?
Wow.
Think about it. I left the game before I got my last paycheck from the Giants. I had already signed a contract with NBC and the Today Show for a good number, doing something that nobody else had done before. Right. And it was just, I was fulfilled. Like I was happy. I was completely content. I wasn't even thinking about working out and playing for the Giants. I was done. I was past it. And then they won a Super Bowl. And so I could say, yeah, I should have stayed another year, but I wasn't really willing to put in that grind anymore. And I was ready for the next step. And I can't regret, you know, the things that I've done and the choices that I've made. You just keep going forward. Glass half full, right, Spiro?
You beat, first of all, yes, and you beat Strahan to the punch. I know that.
I was just about to say that.
No, he wasn't.
You were the first.
You were the blueprint.
Stray wasn't even thinking about it. Stray wasn't even thinking about that. Nobody was thinking about that.
Just thank you.
He's not going to thank me because Stray's journey is amazing. Yes, Stray did it smartly, you know, because I got to NBC and I didn't really have an advocate. Like there was nobody. I was kind of like I was thrown in. Football Night in America was different. But the Today Show, I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I don't know how to write a story. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. So I was just kind of like lost for a year or so. And then I started doing some good stories and, you know, it was fun, but it was directionless. You know what I mean? Right. Strahan, partnered with this producer. Her name was Constance Swartz, and she like crafted his career. Like let it right down, started hosting the Kid Choice Awards and all these things that she was producing. Like he did it the right way, right? I did it first, but he did it the right way. And there's a reason that he's had so much success. Well, no, I just maybe stuck a little bit in his mind he could do it, but he crushed it because of how he took that path. And now you're seeing other guys. Nate Burleson is doing this as well with CBS.
Yeah. Friend of the show. Shout out Nate.
Yep, that's right. Jesse Palmer is hosting The Bachelor. Right? There's a lot of guys that have crossed over.
Now we're gonna get to a certain segment where we're gonna have certain callers come in, ask you a question. But before we get to those callers, was High and Tight just as awkward holding it as much as looking at it?
You know what I mean? Hey,
how the High and Tight was. You know
what that was? You know what that was?
What was that?
That was F.U. Tom Coughlin. And here's why.
Yes.
Here's why. The first thing he said to me, when I first met him, he was like, "Tiki, I know you're great, or you think you're great, but if you fumble, you're not playing. Period." And I was like, "All right, I better fix this." So me and Gerald Ingram, his running back coach, worked on the mechanics of it. You know, it wasn't just like hold it tighter. It's like let's look at the physics of this and figure it out. Like how can I prevent myself from fumbling? And Tom Coughlin was always like, "Tiki, high and tight, high and tight." And so we figured it out. Keep the elbow down. Keep the body of contact. If you go into, if someone's going to hit you off ball, off hand, cross on ball wrist, and go to the ground like this, right? But even when I was open the field, he'd be like, "Tiki, high and tight." So it was just like, "All right, screw you. It's going to be high and tight the whole time." So like, all right.
That never came down.
Never came down. That? So I remember going through the offseason like, "Oh, you like that? It's high and tight, coach." Right? and it just
awesome.
It just stopped.
Awesome.
You know what I
And
mean?
it looked crazy, but wasn't it? Was crazy, I don't know. It looked crazy, but it helped. It really helped. So I guess shout out Tom Coughlin. But guys,
man.
Absolutely. Let's go to a little bit of the callers, man. Who we got here, Jeff?
Let's do it. Let's go to our good friend Authentic. Let's bring him in real quick.
Hey, I get first dibs, bro. What's good?
Yeah, buddy.
What's going on, brother?
Cheers, brother.
Hey, I'm doing well, man. This is amazing, dude. Like to get this kind of insight, man. That fumble story that we just heard right there from Tiki Barber. This is amazing, man. So, salute to Tiki Barber one time for just like bringing this to our community and the Giants community. Y'all know we've been doing this. We put our heart and soul into building content for Giants fans across the country, and to have somebody, not just somebody, but a legend like Tiki up here on a panel with y'all, that's amazing. So God bless y'all for having me on the panel, just for starters.
You got it, man.
Anytime, brother.
You're a professional over there.
Yes,
hey, thank you, man. I'm a producer and an engineer by day. I live in Washington, D.C. So when you talked about the Northeast not really being, people down here in our area not really being accustomed to baseball and all that, I totally know about that. My mom was forcing me to play baseball back in the day. But I won't take up too much time. I just want to get to a couple questions.
They need to get you in front of the mic, bro. You got pipes, bro.
Thank you, man. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that.
That's authentic, man. That's authentic.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot coming from you, man. I definitely watched your career, man, and salute to your broadcast career you got going on right now.
I appreciate you.
I just wanted to get this. It's kind of a two-part question I kind of want to ask, focused on one part of it. I told Eli about this earlier.
Okay.
With what's happening with Daniel Jones in the first 3 years of his career, we know already, the kid has not had the best fair shake, we'll say. In New York for the first 3 years. They neglected to build around him for the first couple of years. I remember Darius Slayton being the only offensive weapon that was drafted during his tenure. But being that he has had these struggles, and we looking at the past Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, we're looking at most guys who are Hall of Famers or soon to be Hall of Famers, guys like Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson. You got a couple outliers there with Nick Foles and maybe a Flacco and a few others maybe, and that's about it. And my question here, with all that said, is with Daniel Jones, one, what do we have to see from him this year? Or I'll say, what do you want to see from him this year where the Giants would retain him? And two, is there anything that would be enough to be invested in a quarterback who in the first 3 years of his career has not, shown those – it kind of reminds people of Eli, and I do see a lot of people making that comparison where it's like it's not flashing greatness right off the bat. And if we do get a great season here coming up in 2022, is that even going to be enough?
Yeah, the comparison is I think smart because they have similar personalities. Like if Daniel Jones had been drafted to New York without us having experienced Eli Manning, we would have said there's no way you're making it in New York.
That's a great point.
But his demeanor, Eli's demeanor, that is, sets Daniel Jones as a potential success in New York. Now, you're right about that stat that you said. It's actually 76% of teams that won a Super Bowl have a quarterback that's going to be that is or is going to be a Hall of Famer. And for the other 24% of teams that didn't have that Hall of Fame quarterback, they had elite defenses. The Redskins, formerly Redskins, back in the 80s, the Chicago Bears, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, unfortunately, the Baltimore Ravens, who beat us up in 2000.
Don't talk about that.
Even the Eagles with Nick Foles, they had a top 10 defense, or top 5 defense that year that they won the Super Bowl. So if you don't have a Hall of Fame level quarterback, you better have an elite level defense. So the question you ask, and this is just me, this is my metric because I look at stats. Is Daniel Jones a Hall of Famer? The answer is probably no. And so as a result, as I've tried to evaluate what the Giants should do regarding Daniel Jones, I have to be fair because he has had 4 offensive coordinators in 3 years, which is just ridiculous. We know that doesn't lead to success, but we also know he's an extraordinarily talented kid. Like, he's smart. He's an athlete. He can throw the ball when they allowed him to push it downfield in his rookie season. We saw a couple 300-yard games, so we know he can do those things. But if he's great, what do we do? Right? What if he has a Pro Bowl season? What do we pay him $30 million? Right. So because of the clock and how it works with quarterbacks, it's almost like he doesn't have a fair shot this year, even if he has success. And so I'm not going to say this is a total year for the Giants because I mean, they could, mess around and win 8 games or even, get over 9 and have a plus 500 record. But I feel like this is a year to build and hold steady with a guy like Daniel Jones. And it's a shame he might go someplace else after this is done, all said and done, and be great because he's still young-ish. But I don't see him as the future, despite my affinity for him as a person and as a quarterback if he has the right coaching.
It's totally fair. It's the nature of the business and the rookie contracts for a quarterback. They take up such a huge chunk of the salary cap that you got to win with them on a rookie deal and know that you have your guy before you pay him. That's right.
Or pay him. If you're going to pay him, you got to know that he's your franchise, like your brand, your face, your franchise, and you can give him a 10-year deal or an 8-year deal, which basically creates a bank for you that you can borrow against when you need to, rearrange the cap at some time down the road. That's what Patrick Mahomes did. Right. He signed this long-ass deal, which isn't high on AAV. I mean, it is actually, but not actual AAV. The real money is not actually that high. The AAV is enormous, but that's not guaranteed money. It's fungible money because they know he's going to be there. They know that they can mess with the money, for the next 7 years. That we're not in that situation with Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah. That makes sense. Do you think there's a case where a guy like Daniel Jones, who, he's shown maybe some flashes here and there, could you sign a quarterback in this day and age to a deal that's not that top dollar that the quarterbacks are getting, that Dak Prescott deal?
Yes, you do. Because we saw it exactly with Ryan Tannehill with the Tennessee Titans, right? So it can happen, but it usually doesn't happen with the team that's drafted them, right? It's usually somewhere else. And so that's why I say I could completely see Daniel Jones going someplace, wherever. Trying to think where it would be. Let's say Trey Lance fails in San Francisco. I could see him going out the Kyle Shanahan system, 2 years from now and just beasting it, right? Because it's all about scheming success. Right. There's 2 ways for success, at least on offense in the NFL, as you guys know. You either have superior talent, like let's just hand that dude the ball and go beast it. Yeah. Or you scheme it. Right. You misdirection. You create mismatches with lineups. You throw a wide receiver so they think you're in double.
San Francisco.
2 tight end personnel. All of a sudden that receiver's a running back. Cordarrelle Patterson's the same way in Atlanta. It's the reason he finally caught on and they signed him down there in Arthur Smith's system. Right. So you either scheme it or you have superior talent. I can see Daniel Jones in a system like that dominating. Right. And so he could go someplace else and do really well, like Ryan Tannehill. I just don't see the path in New York because of the money that it would take if he has a great season, unless he just says, you know what, I want to be here, and I'll take $12 million to be your starting quarterback.
He seems so nice that I could see him actually doing that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You're right.
Let's see. But thank you, Authentic. Thank you so much, man. Shout out what you got going on, please.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Hey, man. Thank y'all for having me on the panel. Eli, I appreciate you reaching out, man. I'm just gearing up to get the podcast back going during football season. For those that don't know, I do a show called Authentic in the Beard with my partner.
Nice.
I've known him since we was kids. Both came up in the DMV area. He's a Washington fan. I'm a New York Giants fan. So I give you that little bit of a perspective that's coming from a Washington, D.C. area. It's not the in New York kind of heart of in New York, kind of being brainwashed by the media that's over there. Not that it's bad or anything, but it's definitely a different perspective. But y'all can check us out at Authentic in the Beard, spelled the way I spell it. And we podcast every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning. So we at it, man. I appreciate y'all again for having me on. And Tiki, this is a blessing again, man. I really appreciate you just doing things like this because I come from the music industry where there's a lot of gatekeeping, and this is important to people like us on this panel. So again, thank you.
I appreciate you out there. I'll check you out too as well.
All right, man. Appreciate y'all. Y'all be good.
Hey, appreciate you,
Authentic, brother. All right, let's get to another call. I think we have someone lined up as well for Tiki.
Yes, sir. If Authentic sounds like a pro, it's because he is a pro.
He's a pro.
Authentic is a pro. He's been doing this for years. He's great. He's awesome. Now, one thing that before we get to the caller, the one thing we do in the New York Giants community, as far as content creators, we all invite each other on each other's show and we support each other. So Authentic's one of the guys we support. So, that's the reason why we're like, hey, man, join, man. He's a huge fan. So I'm happy that he got the opportunity to actually meet you. But all right, what else we got, Jeff? Who else we got?
Spiro, you're going to say something?
Yes. We got, hey, listen, we got, I got another, you want me to bring in my caller?
Sure.
I got a caller here.
We got the next caller.
All right, let's bring him in. Hey, Mr. Gregory Butler.
Hey, what is up?
Cheers, brother.
Gentlemen,
brother.
good to be here. Good to be here. Thanks for your time, Tiki. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Greg.
So, Giants season ticket holder since the 80s, my whole damn life. Your career was in the wheelhouse of 12 years old, so on. So it's NFL draft season. So the cliche everybody always goes to when they're drafted not in the top 3 is they remember all of the players who were drafted ahead of them. They have a chip on their shoulder. So the first part of the question is, do you know the guys that were drafted at running back in the first round ahead of you?
I think there was 2, right? Corey Dillon.
Oh, he knows.
And I know who the other one was, and I'll tell you a funny story. The other one was Warwick Dunn, and Warwick Dunn was not my nemesis because he's such a great dude. He's like my boy. My brother actually roomed with him when they first got drafted down there in Tampa. Ronnie was in the 3rd round. Warwick was in the 1st. But the president at the time, I'm forgetting his name now, of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, told me after the fact that they wanted the Bucs. That is, they wanted to draft me or Warwick. It was like a debate. Like these two dudes are inseparable. And if you go look at our career stats, they're almost identical.
Right.
I had more receiving yards than he did, but our stats are like almost identical. And the reason they took Warwick instead of me is because he went to Florida State. And the Bucs, they wanted the local flavor as opposed to the Virginia boy. Even though if they had taken RHONJ and Tiki in the 1st and 3rd rounds, it'd been dope down there.
It seemed to work out for both of you guys.
Yes, it did.
And then the second part about it was I was a huge Rodney Hampton fan.
Damn.
Your career only crossed over a year, and I know he only played for 2 games that year, but your running backs room with Charles Way, Tyrone Wheatley, was any one of those guys, would you say, transformative in a sense in your career?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Charles Way being a UVA guy.
So here's a funny story about Charles Way. So early in my career at UVA, not dissimilar to my career for the Giants, I wasn't really doing much. I was kind of like a 3rd down guy, return punts and kickoffs and stuff like that. But there was one game I got to play in my first year down there, and Charles and I were running down the sideline, like side by side. He was leading me just a little bit, and I was running right behind him. He got drilled, like he got nailed, and he landed on top of me, and he broke my scapula, right? And I'm like, it's like, Charles, you can't get out of the way. So I was out for like a month because Charles broke my scapula. But he was the man in college. Charles Way was my liaison when I first came to the Giants because I had a familiarity with him, and we were friendly, and it made it comfortable for a kid from Southwest Virginia to come up to New York and not feel intimidated. I also had Percy Ellsworth. You guys may or may not remember Percy Ellsworth.
Percy.
He was a safety.
Yeah.
He was my boy. He was from the 757.
Shout out.
Exactly. Authentic will know that. But he also used to take care of me. It was Charles Way who really indoctrinated me into the NFL world, into the Giants, and protected me in a sense. But Hamp, let me tell you a story about Hamp.
Yep.
Hamp used to hang hang out. And our practice field overlooked the city. Like we could see the city. As you guys remember during 9/11, like that was one of the reasons that we as a team, told the league we can't play. Right? We are literally looking at a smoldering tower, and there are hundreds of cars in our parking lot that were never going to get picked up because it was a commuter lot. But Hamp used to tell me, put his arm around me. We'd be on the practice field. He's like, "Young buck, don't go over there because you will get lost." So the next year I moved into the city. But it was the greatest thing I ever did. Yeah, but Hamp had knee injuries, and he opened the door for me to start my first game, and he played a couple, but he was cool as hell. He's still cool as hell.
We're big. Awesome. We're a big Rodney Hampton fan.
How can you not be, man?
Absolutely. Greg, is that all the show you got for today?
Greg, appreciate you, buddy.
I appreciate your time, Tiki. I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you, Greg.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Thank you, Greg. All right, and before last but not least, do we have one more caller for Tiki? I think we had lined up.
We got one more, not to be confused with Tiki. This is TK. This is TK.
Tiki,
let's go.
Holy shit! It's the greatest running back in my beloved Giants history.
Let's go.
Tiki fucking Barber, baby.
Let's go.
I can honestly say I never thought this moment was going to happen.
Bro, can I ask you a question?
Oh, 100%. Go on.
Where are the eyes? You don't have eyes in your name, and your eyebrows are blocking you.
Eyebrow? It's connected.
Those are
epic style over here.
Those are epic brows, bro. Respect.
And I'm never cutting them. Not for you. Not for anyone. Not my wife. Nobody.
That's the kind of guy we respect.
Tiki, it's so funny you say that. I always tell him he's more hair than face.
He ain't lying. He ain't lying.
That's great.
TK, what you got, brother?
So, Tiki, I'm sure you get a ton of football questions, and also thank you for saying that everyone before me was professional, because I definitely am not.
What do you got? You got the what do you got on back?
We got in the background.
The history of the New York Giants playing for you back here, buddy.
I love it.
No big deal.
I know you know it like the back of your hand. Me, I need to be reminded because of the way my eyebrows and eyes are. So
Go ahead, brother.
I'm gonna take a little bit of a left turn with this because I didn't have any brothers. You came up with a twin brother and ended up both making it to the NFL. Kudos to your parents and their
Kudos, Miss Barber, Mr. Barber, man.
Yeah, Mrs. Barber. We didn't know my dad until about I knew him, but I didn't really reconnect with him until I got remarried and I got pregnant with my fifth kid. My wife reached out to my dad and was like, "Wow, I want my kids to know all their grandkids. Awesome. Would you like to come visit?" So he came visit. We hit it off, and we've been tight ever since. I have a half brother and a half sister that I've gotten really close, and there's the other side of my family that I've reconnected with about 8 years ago, which is awesome. And by the way, there's the history of my father, which I'm sure you guys know. He was roommates with Bruce Arians at Virginia Tech.
Oh, big deal.
So Bruce and my pops were tight, and
yeah.
So I guess this was going to be a you versus RHONJ type of questioning, but now let's open it up to the whole family.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so we're going to start off here. I got off the links this afternoon, and I played terribly. Who's the better golfer, you or RHONJ?
Dude, RHONJ lives in Florida. He lives in Florida, dude. Right. He's lived on a golf course. RHONJ's about a 3 handicap when he's on. I'm about a 21.
Me too.
I'm terrible. I'm garbage. But that's his life. You know what I mean? He lives on a golf course. He has a member of a couple courses down there, Innisbrook, which does the Valspar Championship, and Old Memorial. He plays almost every day. Dude, he travels. He got invited to the Masters.
Oh wow!
Right? Just from some friend of his. It's a golfer. It's like, hey, you want to come to the Masters? I'm like, what?
Good to know people. Yeah,
exactly. No, he actually played Augusta with Peyton Manning. Right? So
come on. All right, Tom, that
you.
was a layup. What else you got?
Oh, it was supposed to be a layup because if you suck at golf, come play with us. We'll teach you how to really suck.
I will.
Well, you're not in those PE things anymore, so you can come and play with us. Anyway, second question. Who's better on the grill, flipping burgers for a party? You, RHONJ, somebody else in the family. Who's the better grill master?
So, first of all, I don't eat a ton of meat. So maybe I'll have a hamburger
twice. It could be asparagus. Let's not hate here.
Or mushroom burgers or something like that, right? So it's definitely RHONJ because he is the partier. So let's not forget, my brother played 16 years in the NFL. So 6 years longer than me.
That. Yeah.
Like he's had a ton of success. But the most important thing with playing 16 years is he's got 6 more years of game checks than I do, which means he doesn't have to do it. It's my
That's why he can play golf.
Say hello to CJ.
Oh, hey!
This is CJ.
Hey!
Oh,
He's got
how long is that?
He's got the same eyebrows as Tom.
I have a Saluki. It's like a greyhound. It's like a greyhound, but it has fur. So that's hair.
Awesome,
man.
CJ.
Oh, shout out. What's his name?
Yeah, she's great. CJ, her name.
CJ.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful, man. Shout out CJ. Thank you for joining the show.
She wants something, but I don't have anything for her. So Eli, you talk about your wife bringing you stuff. My wife opened the door and was like, "CJ's bothering me." put her in my office.
Shout out to the wives, man. Let's hope we can get dinner with the wives one day, man. We'll talk about that off the side, man.
Most definitely.
But TK, is anything else you wanted to add, brother? Before we run?
Yeah, I could ask Tiki Barber questions all night long. Are you kidding me?
Of course,
Tiki,
great.
I'm not going to take up any more time. Thank you for everything you did for the Giants. I know you got a lot of shit. I gave you shit at the time. I'm not going to lie to you. I did.
As long as you got love right now, that's all that matters.
The story you told earlier, as I was watching, you have nothing but love for me.
Thank you. I
also got to let you know, for the longest time, we were drinking at the Tiki Barber Tiki Bar in the backyard of one of my best friends in the world.
We need to commercialize that.
Yes.
Start some franchise.
Come on, that's not the first time you've heard that.
No, of course not. but I've never commercialized it. So
never made money on it before.
I'm in.
Excellent. Thank you, TK. I do appreciate your time, brother. Thank you for joining the show.
Thank you, guys. Eli, Jeff, Mr. Glass half full, Spiro. Thank you guys for letting me do this. Tiki, nice to virtually meet you. You guys have a great evening.
Thanks,
anytime, brother. Thank you.
So, wait.
Shout out to the callers, by the way.
Yeah, shout out to the callers.
But
speaking of the wives,
oh, you're gonna go
we
here.
have to talk about this a little bit. My wife would hate me if I did it because listen, I'm recording the show right now. I'm about to after we're done with this interview, I'm off.
That's right. It's
Tuesday night. So I wanted to say, let's forget about the girls for a second. Outside of Gorga, because I think you and Gorga are boys here.
Yeah. We've known Joe for a while.
Who's the next your next boy? Like, who have you become
Joe
friends with?
Joe Benigno. We talk all the time.
That's awesome.
He is the man, Benigno. He's awesome, and Marge is great to my wife Tracy, and so we chat and hang out with him probably the most. But they're all cool as hell, especially Catania. Like,
he's an animal. That
like
guy.
He's like the dude's dude, man. He's just like, whatever you need, man. Got you. We're good, man. Let's go. I had so much. Like, there's a lot of drama in this show, as you know.
Oh yeah.
But I had so much fun filming it with these guys, and it was funny because I was always talking to the dudes. I was like, dude, how do you stay out of this drama?
Right.
And they're like, we just say stuff that we know they can't air. So we we end up not on it. Like, we're there, they show our faces, but we don't ever have any drama.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way. You only get this kind of content here at New York Revival. Tiki's just dropping it on us. Hey, one last thing, and we'll move off of it. Teresa, does she live up to the hype?
Teresa's
is she as special as she is?
She's intense. Let's put it that way. She's intense. Look, I know this because of Giants fandom. She's like a sports fan in New York. She is passionate as hell. And if you aggrieve her in any way, right? If you say, Eli, you're comical, right? She's coming after you. Right, so
sounds like Giant Twitter. So it's Giants Twitter.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
Shout out to her.
Yeah, they're all great though. I love them. We had so much fun shooting that over the last summer.
I love it, man.
Here's a section. We're going to switch it up just a little bit because I want to get more in detail after this. Here's a game we call Shots because we are like a TV show at a bar. Like we're supposed to be a bar type TV show, and we got a segment called Shots, guys. All right.
And what Shots is? Yeah. Let's get
we need to pour a little more. And what this Shots game is very, very simple. We're going to give you an example here, Brother Tiki. We're going to call out a name, an object, etc. So, for an example, I'm going to give you a name, Eli Manning, Jeff. One word.
Goat.
All right.
Giants, goat.
All right. Spiro.
Legend.
LT.
Oh,
one word.
I wasted goat. I wasted goat too early.
So you wasted goat too early because the goat is
came out way
story.
hot. Start over.
That's another story.
He
so
gets
with that being said, you have the examples of what to do. One word responses, quicks on the fly. So I'm gonna give you a name.
Gotcha.
Brandon Tierney. Excuse me, Brandon Tierney.
That's my brother, man. Brother.
Tom Coughlin.
Woo.
That's good. Take a shot.
High and tight.
High and tight.
Complicated. Put it that way. Because I love him as a coach. He was such a pain in the ass.
We'll dive into that. We'll dive into that a little more.
Complicated.
Say no more. Eli Manning.
He's a legend.
I thought you were going to say comical.
No. But you guys are seeing what the hell I was talking about.
Yes.
Of course.
You guys are seeing what I'm talking about.
Of course. Giants fans.
Goats.
Oh, smart man.
Pander.
No, it's real. Trust me, I've seen them everywhere. I mean, Kansas City might have it a little bit, and that's only because I have a little bit of a soft spot for them because of after 9/11, how they treated us when we were out there. I was expecting hell. They were amazing.
Awesome.
But there's a lot of apathy around the league, bro. Right? You go to some of these stadiums, like they don't care.
Yeah.
You know, so and in the heyday when the Giants are good, the fans are unreal.
Yeah,
awesome. I got a few more, nothing crazy, but Jim Fossil.
I'll call him a pseudo father. He was like a second father to me.
Awesome.
And without him protecting me, I wouldn't have been a Giant. I was joking, but I was serious. They were literally trying to get rid of me. And Jim protected me and kept me around and helped me find my path that allowed me to become the player that I ultimately became.
Awesome.
Nice one.
Wellington Mara.
Awesome.
Oh, man, I get sad when I think about Wellington. And that's weird because when I think about Bob Tisch, I have this, it's the 180-degree emotion. Like there's like an elation I have when I think about Bob. It's like a celebration. When I think about Wellington, I get sad. He was iconic. Right? He goes back to the beginning of the league. He was the Duke.
Duke. Yeah.
The name is on the ball.
Yeah.
All right. He had a quiet presence. He was always there, sitting on his little chair. Like he had a fold-up chair that just held in his hand. Open it up, sit there. He was always there. And he very rarely spoke to us, but when he did, you listen.
And we're gonna dive in a little bit of that more if you don't mind as well. But I got two more for you, Tiki.
Go ahead.
Family.
Family's love, man. It's love. I don't think I realized the importance of family, extended, and friends until I went through a divorce. I lost a lot of friends. They just disappeared. And you find out who loves you, who doesn't.
And last but not least, Tiki Barber.
The lesser twin. I gotta do that.
Never that. But I'll say this.
I'll say this. My one word, because me and RHONJ share this. This is our goal. Twinning.
I like that. I want to dive a little bit more into Wellington Mara because not too long ago, there was a big controversy about the Giants organization, the Brian Flores lawsuit. We're not going to dive into that too much, but there was a caller that said something that the Giants is a racist organization. Yeah. And he kind of wanted you to kind of agree to that, but that wasn't your truth. Yeah. But the passion you had for Wellington Mara, just break down how instrumental he was in your career or in your life per se.
Yeah. So, that caller was trying to say things like, you are a black man in New York media, of which there are not a lot. You could count on one hand the number of black hosts that have been at WFAN. I think there's been one other in the midday. And this is him saying this. It was my responsibility to call out the Giants organization for being racist. And as you said, Eli, that's not my truth. Like, that's not what I experienced. The relationship that I have with the Giants, you know, the team and the organization, the owners, is deep and real. And they embrace me in ways that I didn't expect. You know what I mean? You know, maybe there's just a personability about me. You guys see it, that just makes me a little bit different. But I never saw that. So I couldn't co-sign it. But I mentioned about Wellington and how impactful he was just on our organization. And if you took the time, which I did, because I'm curious, as I've told you guys before, to learn about his history and the history of the team and his mantras to life with family, faith, and football, and to see that actually exist every single day. Like, all of his grandkids would be there, like, all the time. Timmy McDonald, one of his grandkids who now works for the organization, he was a ball boy. They were always there, right? His sons, and Chris and John, you know, they were always there. Frank, and you know, you just felt like you were part of a family if you embraced what that family, meaning the Giants, was all about. And so I embraced it. I fully embraced it. Right? I had good coaches. Even Tom, who I joke about and who's not having a good relationship with, he was a great coach to me. Like, he made me into a star. Without him, I'm not, you know, an all pro. I'm not, you know, 10,000, 5,000 yard guy. And you know, I'm not without him. So I respect the hell out of what the organization created for me. Like, this brand that allowed me to step out of the game and go work in media and start businesses and have a personality and a persona outside of the game. That all started because Wellington Mara agreed to draft me. And you know, when you know, I told that story about going up to visit him when this caller called on the day that he ultimately passed away. I mean, I was shocked. Like, I was honestly shocked. I was at home. It was our off day. Ronnie Barnes, who is our black head of training, called me. It's like, the Maras want you to go up to see Wellington in Westchester. And I remember walking in, and Shockey was walking out, because Wellington loved Jeremy Shockey. Loved him. Like, and Jeremy did some, you know, crazy stuff, and Wellington would always try to get him back in line. And Shockey was walking out, and he was like, they're all in there. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, all of them. Like, it's 11 kids and 43 grandkids, right? It was, and you know, here I am walking through this. It was, I don't know, it was surreal, right? I've done some surreal things. Like, I was in the Knesset in Israel with Shimon Peres, right? I was in the State Department with Condoleezza Rice. Walking into Wellington Mara's house as he was on his deathbed, and getting a chance to go up to him, say a prayer with him, and whisper in his ear to thank him for everything that he was able to do for me, was just like, how do you forget that? You know what I mean? How does anything mean more? Because this was me professionally, right? And then to have the game that I had the following weekend, that subsequent weekend against, you know, still the then Washington Redskins, where, you know, I had 211 yards and in 3 quarters. Took myself out of that game and gave the football to Timmy McDonald, and, you know, accomplished what to honor. Like, that's the only way to honor them is to do what he brought me there to do exceptionally well. And it was an all-time game for me at the time. And, you know, I don't know, it moves me in a way that just makes me emotional.
That's a real life moment right there. That's
right.
Just,
right.
Yeah, somebody means that much to you to get to say thank you at that moment.
Right. And again, it's not family. Like, it's not like my son AJ, who's at Princeton, and I remember him being born, and Chasen and my twins, and, you know, it's not family, but it's different, right? And it's it's like this adjacent family that, you know, could easily just be cast off as this, you know, professional stop that I had in my career. And so it's why it hurt me so bad when Giants fans used to say Tiki hates the Giants. I'm like, you just don't understand, right? It's my job to be critical. It's my job to have an opinion. And even if it doesn't mess with your opinion, doesn't mean that I'm harboring a an ill will towards this organization, this family. Hell, families fight, you know this, right?
Absolutely,
And,
absolutely.
You know, it wasn't always great with the Giants, but that's life. And so,
and it's funny you say that, because again, just to dive into a little more, a lot of fans do think you have this bitterness or etc. Like they have this misconception that you hate this organization, but after hearing that story, they should understand exactly how you feel, especially for Mr. Mara, Wellington Mara, the Duke. Like they should understand that you love this organization with a passion.
No doubt.
That it is your job just to be critical, to broadcast.
But here's the thing, Eli. Here's the thing, Eli. It's hard to do what I do, to step into what I started doing. It's hard, right? It's hard to be critical. It's hard not to be a homer. You know what I mean? It's hard not to always, you know, be Spiro over there, glass half full, right? It's hard to just tell it like it is. But I've always felt like if you're asking me a question, I have to be truthful, right? I have to tell you what I really feel. You know, otherwise, why are you hiring me to do my job? Right. And so, you know, it's just, it was frustrating, but I think I always just felt like in time it'll come around, right? It doesn't do me any good to fight people on social media. It doesn't do me any good to, you know, fire back and like and call people names like they were calling me. It doesn't do me any good. And so we talked about this before we started, Jeff. Yeah. I have to ignore, you know, as much as I would love to respond, and just like everybody wants to get their little pound of flesh back and say, take that, right? I never do it. I don't know.
And I respect that.
I'm just not combative like that.
Well, I'm hoping this show helps shine the light on where you're actually coming from. And that was part of what we wanted to accomplish. And I think we did. And I think I saw some comments in here from people who I saw on Twitter who were coming from one way. And then they were like, okay, wow, like needed to hear that, was glad to hear that. So that was part of our objective.
You guys will find out. I am the easiest person in the world, man. Like I don't have enemies, right? And I just it's not worth it. And if I do, I just don't interact with them, right? If I have a relationship with somebody and we have an issue, we're gonna figure it out, right? It's worth figuring it out. Otherwise, it's not worth having that relationship. So,
and let me make this clear too. A lot of people, I'll give you some inside information. Since Tiki Barber, we DM'd each other. Let me tell you, he has a birthday before me.
That's
I don't expect a text from Tiki Barber to wish me a happy birthday, but this is how great he is, guys. This will give you some inside information. You know, he actually texts me. I think it's a little bit at night before the day ended, and he's like, hey, bro, happy birthday, cheers. That right there just dispelled, like, I owe you, I'm forever in debt to you, Tiki. Thank you so much for that.
He sent us a screenshot.
So I did. So thank you so much for that. For all the fans out there, man, this is just a great guy, man. Forget all the other stuff that comes with it. He's a legend. And I say that right here. Give him his flowers. He is a legend. But on a happy note, Tiki, I want to say this. How was it getting a phone call to be part of the Ring of Honor?
How was it getting that call? It was amazing.
Take me through that journey. Take me through your emotion. How was it?
So that was, you got to understand, that was a really rough time in my life. You know, I was not at NBC any longer. I was sitting in my apartment, basically not leaving. I probably was depressed in some capacity, but I didn't, you know, I'm a man. I'm not going to talk about being depressed. I don't do that.
Talk about our feelings.
I'm good. I'm
therapy, baby. I go to a therapist. Don't worry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. But I mean, back then nobody thought about that. Like now you hear it on like commercials, like Better Health or whatever these things are. And, you know, it was before what's his name? The wide receiver. Was it Braylon Edwards?
Marshall.
Who it was.
Marshall.
Brandon Marshall. That's right. Brandon Marshall.
Yep. Brandon Marshall.
Talking about it. Now you hear about it all. Like it was before all of that. You just, as an athlete, you just compartmentalize it. You're like, I'm good. I'll figure this thing out. I got this. I'm good. Right. These negative feelings are nothing. And so it happened during, you know, going through a bad divorce, not working, just kind of lost in limbo without purpose. And, you know, they invited me back to be a part of the inaugural Ring of Honor. And it meant something because I hadn't been over there, you know, in 4 years, maybe, you know, I just hadn't been over there. And, you know, when I got there, you wouldn't believe, like Strahan was there. Like they were all nothing but love, right? John and Steve Tisch and John Tisch, like it was amazing. And, you know, I'll never forget because they introduced me and Giants fans booed me at my Ring of Honor. And all I could do was smile at it because I knew where they were coming from. And in a weird way, I respected it.
We're defensive. We're a defensive bunch.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like in a weird way, I respected it. But it became, I don't know, it wasn't defining. It was more like, it's almost like they care, right? You know what I mean? That makes sense. Yeah. Like they care. Yeah, otherwise, if they didn't care, they would just be like, whatever. Apathy is worse than hate, right? When you think about it. And so, I hope over time that changes for the majority of Giants fans.
I think it will.
I think Giants fans need to remember what you actually did for the Giants and who you really were. I'm going to give it to them right now. Because, I think a lot of fans are younger and they don't remember. They hear the story about the comments and they latch onto that without forming an opinion of their own, or even going back and watching games and seeing what you were game in and game out. Everyone's going nuts because Saquon Barkley had 2,000 scrimmage yards his rookie year, right? Tiki over his last 7 years averaged 1,920 yards from scrimmage, okay? Not only that, played all 16 games in 6 out of 7 years. Only missed 2 games in that 1 year. So he played 14 games the 1 year he missed time. Think about what that meant. Like, you were being used as a receiver before a lot of running backs were. You were getting targets every year. You would have been a great fantasy running back.
All day.
I get a lot of PPR love. Hey, you won my fantasy league for me.
But you were a complete back. You were a great Giant. And I think you were the best at, there were a few like complete backs that you can think of, but what you did better than anyone I've ever seen is you knew when a play was over and you knew how to squeeze that extra yard or two and pop up and get back to the huddle, and kind of going along with that, you always knew how to avoid the big hit. Yeah. You were diving under. How many times did I see linebackers collide above you and you just popped up like smiling, like time for the next snap?
Yeah, right. You did that. My mama didn't raise no fool, man.
But like you see Saquon, who's got obviously all the talent in the world, but he's dancing behind the line of scrimmage. He doesn't put his shoulder down.
Part of that's not his fault. Part of that's not his fault. Like some of it is him, right? Because it's trust. But a lot of it, I think, is coaching and an inferior offensive line. So you go back to those great years that you were talking about with me, particularly the last 3, where it was, 1,500, 1,800, 1,600 yards rushing. I had such a trust. Yeah, just rushing. Just such a trust with Luke Pettigrew and Richie Sorberg and Sean O'Hara and Chris Snee and Kareem McKenzie. Like I knew exactly what they were doing. And you know why? Because I would go sit in their meeting rooms with them. You know what? We'd order pizza. I mean, hell, on Fridays we'd have beer, right? We'd bring in like cases of beer.
They were pretty good too. They were pretty good.
Well, they were good, but it's not about being good. It's about being on the same page. So if you watch some of my highlights, and there's one, and it's got brought up. What's his name at Big Blue VCR? He put all those highlights from my career, and in the Washington game in particular, my last touchdown, it's like a 40-something yard touchdown, and Sean O'Hara is pulling around, right? So we're lined up. Sean O'Hara is pulling around to the right, and I'm tasked. It's called 36 sprint 36, right? He's got to pull around. He's got to find the guy who they now comboed down, and there's a scraping linebacker, right? Mm-hmm. The guy, there's nobody. Like he's confused, right? But the reason that play worked is because if you watch it, go back and watch this. My depth, I'm not running towards the line of scrimmage. My angle at the point of attack is so specific. It's intentional. So I turn, controlled step. I'm running to basically 3 yards deep of the tight end, right? So that I have space. So if, God forbid, something gets blown up, right? Because when you have games happening on the offensive line, all it takes is for someone to blow up that guard, and now they're in the backfield. And if you're too shallow, the play's dead, right? Absolutely. So you got to know these things, right? So it was perfect step. I was aiming 2 yards at deep of the tight end, and I was just kind of looking at Sean, but keeping my path. So it's like intentional on my path. And eventually we start to converge. And I see that he can't find his block. And so I know I gotta do something. So I slow down and I push him. Like I just gave him like a little suggestion. I gave him a suggestion, right? I'm keeping my feet are still moving, and he gets it. He feels me, and he bumps into the linebacker scraping over top.
Yes.
I cut right behind him, split the defense, and go and score a touchdown. So like success in the run game is about trust. It's about being so precise with your steps, the offensive line's mesh points. And if you don't do that and you're guessing from jump, you have no chance. I mean, you might get lucky because you're a jitterbug and you're athletic, but the chances of success are tiny if you do it any other way than precise. And so I spent time with my line so that those things could happen, right? It wasn't a mistake that I would go for 30 or 40 or 50, right? I'd break out and have these massive runs. It was because we practiced them, like we rehearsed them. It was like a script, like you guys know I did Broadway, right? I did Broadway with Tiki boots, right? So like the hardest thing about doing Broadway was the blocking. Like I gotta not run into that guy as he's crossing in front of me. It's the same thing with football. And one of the reasons that I think Saquon is struggling is because there's no trust between him and that offensive line. And half the time I'm watching his feet, and his feet are like all over the place. I'm like, where, like, what's the plan? Like, there's no plan. It's just like figure it out when you get there. That works for Le'Veon Bell. You know what I mean? That works for Barry Sanders. It doesn't work for 98% of running backs in the NFL. That's the issue. That's not Saquon. It's part Saquon, but it's not Saquon.
Now, have you ever gotten a call from a Saquon? Because again, you're one of the greatest Giants running back we ever seen and we ever had. So did you ever get that call from Saquon?
I talked to him early. Yeah. He had his PR guy, Ron Berkowitz, and I are friends. He's actually my neighbor. He's A-Rod's guy too. And we went to RHONJ together, when he first got drafted, and we chatted. I loved him, man. He asked all the right questions. Tell me about this. Tell me about this. Right? He's curious. He's humble. He can be a stud. He's just got to be healthy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you know what? I got away with it because it was 1997. There was there was Twitter, but nobody gave a shit about Twitter. You know what I mean? Nobody cared about social media. Right?
No, not like today.
There was none of that. Like I battled injuries just like he did. But I had a coach who withstood like some of those negative seasons and helped me survive. Saquon's had 3 coaches. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like it's almost unfair. It's almost unfair to criticize him. But
I agree.
Health is an issue, and the lack of a plan is something that's it's painfully obvious when I watch the Giants run game.
So I got a question for you. This is off topic here, but I heard you talking about your love for your offensive line.
Yeah.
Financially, how much did you love them? What's your best gift that you've given out to your offensive line?
So I'll say. So you guys see this watch?
Oh yeah.
This is a Panerai Luminor. Mine is actually the 1950 edition, which is these are Italian naval diving watches, and they ran a lot. And so this was my penultimate year. My penultimate year, I got all the guys. I think I got 10 of them. Because it was the starters. I think I got the backups a different watch, but I still got them watches. I got them all Panerized, and it was funny when I gave it to them because they were like, "I don't know what to do with this. Like, do I wear this? Or do I just keep it? Or I just keep it in a box, right? What do I do? Let me tell you something full circle. So about 3 months ago, Richie Sorberg reached out to me. And he showed me that he gave that watch to his son when his son became a man, type of thing. It was just amazing. It was awesome. Like it was just. I was like, what, Richie, you might not have ever worn it, but I'm glad I gave it to you, right?
That's awesome.
So I forget the Harley shop. It's right up in it's right up throughway. Orange City, maybe Orange County Choppers.
Orange County, yeah.
Oh yes. Yep.
So my last year, I become a Harley guy. I have a Fat Boy Low.
Nice.
My last year, I was gonna get all of them custom made Harleys. So I called up those guys at Orange County. I was like, all right, this is what I'm looking for, yada specs, etc. because they would have had to refit them because of their weight. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It was gonna cost like $120,000 a bike, and I was like,
no.
You know,
I'm kind of bitch.
I get you something else.
That's an awesome.
I was like,
story,
yeah,
man.
no, thank you, I'm good.
Appreciate
I was good
that.
to him. I was good to him, just not that good.
Yeah.
Right. That is an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. I know we don't have too much time, but I'm having a ball and I can keep you all night. But I know you have to go. You know, you got to get up in the morning, Tiki and Turney. But before we get out of here, I just want to go over the New York sports a little bit. And I know Spee had some questions regarding baseball, etc. So I'm gonna give it to you, Spee and Hefe, man. What do you got for Tiki with these New York sports? I only got one. And that can I go first if you don't mind, guys?
Go
If you don't mind.
Go for it, buddy.
Julius Randle. What the hell is going on? I'm sorry, I got to get close here.
Yeah,
what is going on
I actually
with
had
Julius Randle?
I had this conversation with BT maybe it was last week. So when I knew I was retiring, Brandon Jacobs was there, Derek Ward was there, and Ahmad Bradshaw wasn't there yet. But I remember telling BJ, because BJ liked to think he was the man, like I'm the man. I'd be like, BJ, I'm retiring, right? This is all on you next year.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how good Ahmad would be. I didn't know they were going to get Ahmad. Derek Ward was there as well. But I was like, BJ, you're going to become the man. And when you become the man, this whole I can just come in and steal Tiki's touchdowns is not going to work anymore. You got to be reliable every play as a runner. If they ask you to catch the ball, as a pass blocker, it is hard to be the man. And for a long time, he just didn't. He was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, Teke, I got it." But then when I retired, he was like, "Yo, Teke, you're right. Yeah, you're right, man. It's just hard work." I was like, BJ, put in the hard work, you'll be fine. And obviously, he was. I mean, they rushed for as many yards as we rushed the year before. After I was gone, so it worked. But the problem, I think, for Julius Randle is that he became the man in a vacuum. He became the man when New York sports fans weren't there to criticize, even when he was doing well. Right? I mean, I had some great seasons. Seasons, and then I'd fumble and I'd get booed. You know what I mean? Right?
Absolutely.
New York fans are going to give it to you. He had his second team All NBA season when New York fans weren't there to hold him to account. And then all of a sudden, he comes back and he's feeling hyped. He's got this new contract. He's like, I'm the man. Tibbs is going to run everything to me because who else is drawing double teams, right? It's got to go to me. I got to pound this thing in the rock at the top of the key, right? And the pressure of being the man in a critical environment, it just weighed on him. And I know he talked about his kid, and I'm very sensitive to that stuff. I don't want to dismiss it, but I'll go back to what I told Brandon Jacobs. It is hard to be the man. And he couldn't handle it. And, whether it's right next year, I don't know. But I can tell you, even though it was garbage, games and didn't mean anything, I loved watching Obi Toppin play.
Hell yeah.
I mean, him flying down the lane in that last game, was just like,
dude, he dunks way too easily. He's just looking down at the rim.
And now he's knocking down shots. He's got that, fake dribble handoff. He turns. I mean, he's turned into a more confident player. Tibbs mishandled that. Obviously,
I totally agree.
Him and IQ went out on a really high note, though. So
that's right. IQ is going to be a six. I can see him being a sixth man of the year. IQ.
Oh yeah, hands down. Do appreciate that, man. Speed, what you got?
Real quick, I'm going off on
I see Ryan asking real quick. Was Sehorn actually as good as we remember?
We have this question, this debate all the time.
Yes.
Okay. Clear it up.
Yes.
Yeah, clear it up, Tiki, if you can. If you got time.
Jason Sehorn was one of the best athletes I ever played with. Ooh. And the only reason Sehorn career got derailed, and it really didn't, and he still had a great career, but it wasn't as long as it was. The only reason it got derailed is because he actually wanted to be Dion. He wanted to be a kick returner.
A little cocky.
Oh, yeah.
No, you guys remember this, right? In the Jets preseason games, he tears his ACL.
Yes.
He could have been great at that, but he wanted to do what the best do.
Oh, so he wanted to do that. The coaches didn't put that on him.
Hell no. He was like, I want to return kickoffs.
But no one told him, dude, stay the hell out the way. Your talent. No one, he didn't have that privilege. He wanted to.
No, he did have that privilege because he said, I want to be the kick returner. and we let him.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
And he tore his knee. That was it. Oh my goodness.
He owned the demise.
Seahorn did things that like you're just like, dude, what?
So you think he could be
nuts,
fine?
Man.
You think he'd be fine in
Seahorn.
today's game too?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow,
absolutely.
Do you think
Jason
we'll ever
Seahorn
see another
freak, man?
This is a big question.
Was great.
Another white cornerback.
Are we ever going to see a white cornerback again?
There was one this past year, I believe. I forget his name.
We will all forget his name, probably.
Yeah. I don't know.
He works at Walmart now. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we will. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's just a matter of gravitating to the position, right? It's
now,
it's no different than the black quarterback or the black punter. We actually had a black punter at some point. We actually called him
Marquise King, I think.
Yeah, we actually called him BP for black punter.
That's freaking great. Well, you know what? Jason Seahorn used to fluff his hair more than Tom Brady at the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, he made it cool.
You know what I mean?
He made it cool, man. Shout out Jason Seahorn. I'd love to get him on the show if he's out there. I got to reach out to him. That'll be great.
Tiki, I know you guys hockey is fallen. It's down on the level of interest for New York fans, but Rangers are starting to heat up here, man. Do we have a shot? Do we have a shot?
I mean, of course you have a shot. You have a goalie in Shesterkin who can, stand on his head, as they like to say, and be great. It's interesting because it's funny. BT likes to, we have a daily pick segment that we do every and he's always like trying to pick the Rangers, and I'm like, if it's Georgiev in goal, be careful. Yeah. I'm like, hey, don't pick that. Maybe take the over, but be careful.
Yes.
But look, the Chris Kreider's going to score 50+ goals this year, right?
He hit it tonight.
He did.
He hit 50. Nice.
So
awesome.
Their top line is amazing. They brought in some reinforcements. Can they make a run at it? Yeah, of course they can. But it's always, as you guys know, it's always about how a goalie plays in the postseason. The challenge, for covering hockey on our show is that hockey, I don't know when it happened. Maybe it was 2 decades ago. It stopped being a national sport.
Yeah.
It became
ESPN got rid of it.
Yeah, it became exactly. It became regional, and then it became local.
Yes.
Like you legit don't even know who's on Philly. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's hard to have conversations with hockey. I mean, hell,
we're bringing it back, baby. We're bringing it back.
I mean, you know what would help? It would help if the Devils got good. It would help with the Islanders, and I think maybe they can. They have a new arena, which I have to get out to, the USB arena. Yes. Because I've heard it's amazing. So if all 3 teams get relevant, then hockey can come back in New York.
Right. Fair.
Totally agree. Thank you.
So,
Jeff, you got anything?
Yeah. So instead of asking another hypothetical sports question, I'm just going to say a genuine thank you, because you joining the show, and we are 3 really passionate New York sports fans, diehard Giants fans, 3 good friends. We're brothers. We met doing this, and we are friends for life. Like, this is never going to stop. So like what it means for you to join our show as we're trying to get off the ground. We've only been doing this a few months. This means the world to us. So I can't thank you enough. So
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you for reaching out, Eli, making that connection. You never know. Man. I usually ignore people, but I don't know.
Eli,
I think he's got something.
He has something.
You know what it is? Branding is everything. I mean, I started a company that's a branding company called Julius. It's everything. Right?
Yes.
And your profile, your avatar, that whole
it's epic.
It's just epic, bro.
It's epic.
It's epic.
That's one thing I'm good at. Everybody keeps saying this is the branding, the marketing.
Tiki,
I'm good at that.
Tiki, he changed that picture for one day. We were like, put it back.
No.
Yes. They're like, what do you think? So thank you so much. Honestly, I really hope one day I get to see you in person.
Definitely.
Get you a beer. I really do mean that. So I really hope we can actually do that. And Jeff is right to piggyback that. Thank you so much, man. We're a brand new platform, and trust me, you didn't have to do this. And we reach out to a good amount of people. And the fact that you said yes, thank you so much, man. This is, like I said, our childhood dream came true today. So, guys, you heard it here on New York Revival. Tiki Barber's the man. 15 years had went by. Let it go. Next time you see him at the Ring of Honor or anything at the stadium, you need to cheer him.
You cheer that, man.
Thank you.
Yes.
And give him his flowers while he's here to smell them, guys.
Thank you, bro.
Anytime. To close out the show, we just want to give a condolences to Dwayne Haskins' family. And also Gary Brown, that also we lost here in the NFL world, man. And I just want to say, guys, you just and that Tiki Barber's boy. And before I continue, you want to give anything on Gary Brown?
You have a story for us? Do you have anything?
Yeah, please,
Gary,
please.
you know, Gary was on those Oiler teams back in the day. He used to tell me some stories about. I'm sure you've heard. Just go Google the Oilers in the he used to tell us those stories. But the funniest story, and this actually repaved the way for me to become. It's not even a funny story because it's kind of bad. Gary Brown, he rushed for 1,000 yards. I want to say it was in 99, in 90, I think 98 or 99. I think he rushed for 1,000 yards.
Yep.
And it was like, all right, Gary's going to be our guy. That offseason, he had a motorcycle. He's riding a motorcycle. A woman pulled out in front of him. He hit the car. It flipped up. He was all right. But you guys remember Gary. Gary was like that little stout, like muscle hamster type dude. He landed on his ass, like right on his right ass cheek. And he came in because he had to get treatment for this. He had this hematoma on his. I mean, you think Gary Nash's ass is big? This thing was massive. They're like, bro, you look sexy, man. What's up? So, and he ended up missing like a bunch of time. I think he retired shortly after that. But we used to clown him about that hematoma. He was the man, dude.
He was thick.
I missed the hell out of him. He was thick, but I missed the hell out of him. I talked to him a couple times when DeMarco Murray had his fumbling issues. He was the running back coach down there, so he called me up and we chatted. And I lament that I didn't get a chance to chat with him over the last year when he got ultimately pancreatic cancer, and he went in hospice the last couple of weeks. And it happened quick, man. It happened really quick. He was coaching out in Wisconsin. Yeah, that was the last time I saw him. I did a Wisconsin game last year. That was the last time I saw him. And 7 months later, he passed away. Life is fragile, peeps. So tell the people you love that you love them.
Yep.
That's a perfect way to end it, because that was exactly what I was going to say, man. Tell the people you love them. Call your friends right now that you haven't called in a while. Just say, hey, man, what's up?
That's right.
And thank him. So
that's right.
Just never know, guys. And once again, on behalf of Tiki Barber, Jeff, Mr. Glass Half Full, Spee if you nasty. And your boy Eli Rax. This is New York Revival, where we're not just sports, it's entertainment. Thank you so much, guys, for spending your Tuesday with us. Have a good night.
Love you.
Be good, guys.
Peace.